Would you be at all surprised to discover that there are 1-year-olds getting unemployment benefits? Or how about people who haven't been born yet? They're stealing from you. And this story about Elon Musk's DOGE calls into question why so many Democrats oppose what he's doing. The New York Post reports Elon Musk's DOGE discovers millions in taxpayer dollars wasted on unemployment claims for fake people. In this story, it's not just babies. It's not just people that haven't been born yet. It is people who are over 115 years old. And that's what's being claimed by DOGE. Now, the interesting thing is, Elon Musk has mentioned before that on Social Security, there are people who are like, one guy was listed as 300 years old. The Democrats came in and tried to debunk the story, saying nobody was getting the benefits. And Elon's point was never that they were getting paid. It's that they were on the list, meaning nobody was actually going in and checking the names to make sure they're real people, which also means there's likely people who it's listed at 80 years old who are dead and payments are still going out because no one is checking. Well, DOGE checked on unemployment and found babies getting unemployment payments. To be fair, those babies are unemployed. The New York Post reports Elon Musk's Department of Governmental Efficiency revealed in a bombshell finding that millions of dollars in unemployment claims have been going to fake people who haven't even been born yet, some not even in the century. DOGE claimed it reviewed an initial survey of unemployment claims since 2020 that found that 9,700 people whose birth dates aren't for another 15 years have claimed $69 million in benefits. In one absurd case, a person whose birthday was listed in the year 2154 claimed $41,000. Take a look at this. 24,500 people over 115 years old claimed $59 million. 28,000 people between 1 and 5 years old claimed $254 million. And 9,700 people born who have not yet been born yet with birth dates over 15 years in the future claimed $69 million. Now, hold on. He does mention in one case, someone with a birthday in 2154 claimed $41K. I can already hear the Democrats. They're typos. There's so many claims that are filed. Somebody probably, the 1 and 5 year olds, they probably put the wrong date. That's fairly obvious. Now, I will say this. I think I have an answer to a lot of this. Come on, nobody's actually bringing their baby in to get welfare. Some people may be committing fraud using their baby's name, but it could actually be really simple because I've made this mistake before. I was filling out a form at the DMV and it said date of birth, but I was going quick and it said month, day, year. So I put in today's, which means by the time they processed that, I would have been listed as like a week old. And I was like, oh, I made a mistake. I didn't realize that said birthday and not today's date. My bad. And they rolled their eyes because I should have paid attention. I think a lot of this may be due to typos, but I do think the point ultimately is nobody is checking. How come nobody went in there and said, why are we giving a baby welfare? And then someone could have said, the dude put the wrong date in. He put the date. He filled it out, not his birth date. So then when he filed, it had him listed as a year old. Right? Now, I don't know how someone put 2154. That seems to make no sense. Unless, I don't know how you make that mistake. But the question is, how do these things get paid out? Well, likely it's people inputting the wrong date. Again, that means nobody in government is actually going through any of these forms, any of these systems to make sure fraud isn't happening. The Democrats and the liberals come out and say, it's a mistake. It doesn't matter. No one's actually getting paid, but they don't actually present evidence because they're not doing the investigations. They're going to say, quote, your tax dollars were going to pay fraudulent unemployment claims for fake people born in the future. This is so crazy that I had to read it several times before it sank in. Musk, the world's richest man, has been tasked by Trump with heading the newly created DOGE. Blah, we get it. The oldest living American is 114 years old. So it is safe to say anyone 115 or older is collecting unemployment due to being dead. He said in another post about DOGE's troubling findings. There was no sanity check for impossibly young or impossibly old people for unemployment insurance. Here's what I think. In order to get unemployment insurance, you call. Now, I didn't realize there was federal. I thought it was all state level. But you talk to a person. In Illinois, the way it works, and I'm not sure if it's federal or whatever, you call a number every week, and they ask you a series of questions. Are you are you currently looking for work? And you're like, yes. And it's like, have you found work? No. Have you received any money for any amount? No. Okay. Your payment will come to your bank account. Then they pay you out. I was on unemployment after a legal dispute I had with an employer. And so the issue was I filed a claim against an employer for, let's say, wrongful actions. Long story short, they were stealing money from us out of our paychecks. And every time we tried to get it fixed, they wouldn't. So we filed an action, and then we thought it would be over really quickly, but it ended up taking a little while. And without getting into private details, because, there are certain restrictions on the settlement agreement, ultimately, I could not be working until we resolved this thing due to, well, I can't really say. Okay, but I'll try and keep it simple. There's a limited industry in this space, and working in the space meant working with the same people in other areas. So basically it was either I don't work in this field anymore, or I just wait for this to resolve, and it took longer than we thought. So we ultimately caved. We said, just have them pay us out. So in the meantime, while I was receiving unemployment, they ask if you're looking for work and all this stuff, and they outright told me, do not take a job in a different field, because what's going to happen is you'll end up getting less money. You will be unhappy. You will not be able to pay your bills, and you'll end up on unemployment again. And we want you to get off unemployment. So resolve these issues, get this work. And I said, okay. I actually had a lady say, were you looking for work? And I was like, yes. And she's like, did you find some work? Well, there are some offers. And she was like, yeah, but are they going to pay you at the same or better? I was like, no, they pay really low. I don't know. Should I take it? And she was like, no, because the problem is people stay on unemployment forever if they just take the first thing. So I don't know. It's a weird system. The point is, these people presumably are talking to someone, which means one of two things. The individual at the work doesn't care. Well, it means one of three things. They either don't care, they're not checking into it at all, which I thought, I would say two things. It aligns with they don't really care, or they're in on it. They know people are filling out false information and they're letting that money go anyway. But how does someone who's a year old call to update their unemployment? That's why I think a lot of it's probably just typos. But if you're going to come to me and say that we've got what looks like 60 some odd thousand typos, I'm going to say, yeah, probably not. More than 60, actually. More than 60. People in the comments, someone says, explain to me which federal agency is sending out the unemployment checks. I was under the impression that unemployment is a state program that receives partial funding. Flatbush responds, data sharing, let me see if I can expand this. For unemployment insurance is common among state agencies. You generally cannot collect UI in more than one state at a time. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they had to share it with the federal government as a condition of reimbursement as part of a program created during COVID to extend unemployment, perhaps. Who is cashing these payments? It's an interesting question. So there's the U.S. Department of Labor and the federal unemployment tax that every employer pays, where in the article they say the federal government issued the payments. So it's interesting. I'm wondering if DOGE uncovered either an overlap between data from states, and there are numerous states paying this out, or if there's directly a federal program. What I can say is there are people in the Democratic Party that are angry at what Elon Musk is doing. There are people out protesting in the streets, angry at what Elon Musk is doing. Why? Honest question. I had an argument with someone recently, and they said, I don't want Elon to have my information. And I said, it's a moot point, because you don't know who has your information before Elon. You didn't know who had it. Well, I mean, someone in government, sure, you trust them. No, you didn't even know what it was. At least now you know what to sue, right? So we are better off with Elon doing DOGE, because at the very least, we know if there's something wrong, we know who's in charge. Previously, your information might have gotten released or leaked or accessed by someone surreptitiously, and you did not know. No one ever batted an eye. And still, I got to be honest, no one is. Are there questions being asked about who's got access to your data outside of DOGE? Nope. They're only mad at Elon Musk because these people live in a world of, we have our boogeyman, here's who the boogeyman is, and it's all tribal, largely. Me, I want to know what's going on in government. I like that Trump is curtailing government. And I said this in 16 and in 20. You'd think leftists would actually be supporting Donald Trump. I mean, the mass firings of the federal government, doesn't that support their dismantling of government? But for some reason, they oppose it. Why are they in favor of funding war in Ukraine? None of these things add up other than it is a cult. principles, moral traditions, none of these things matter. It is always going to be about the tribe. Now, the reality is for Trump, that's largely true, but Trump's cult is actually a bit smaller. There are people who fervently will follow Trump no matter what he does. He's always right. I disagree. I just think he's mostly correct. And I'm here for what they got going on. I like it. Even though the tariffs negatively impact me, I'm a fan. But there are still people in every facet who are tribal. For the right, it's much smaller than the left. The left is dominated by tribalism, and it's big. But that's why it pushed so many people to the middle, who ultimately then ended up voting for Trump. And now for that, we have DOGE. And I'm happy to see it. So good job, Elon Musk. I'm looking forward to what else he uncovers. Stay tuned, my friends. Timcast IRL is coming up tonight with Danny Polishchuk. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all then.